What is going on, everybody? William Fletcher here from LeveledUpContractor.com, and welcome to another episode of the Leveled Up Contractor Show. Now, today is a pretty cool episode because what I'm going to be talking about is how we do job costing and how it works between our CRM and QuickBooks Online and how we do that and get it all to sync back and forth. And I'm going to show you some pretty cool stuff that we do before a job, before we actually produce the work, and how we predict what the cost is going to be. And then on the back end side, how that job comes out once it's actually been costed and everything's been paid, and we can see what our real expenses on that are and how we kind of compare that to the original profit, so we can make sure that our jobs are as profitable as possible. So I wanted to sketch this out for you a little bit. So just to kind of give you a basic idea, it all starts with a sales appointment, right? So sales rep goes out and he's pricing a roof on this job, right? And he makes the sell. So he gets that. He comes back to the office with a signed contract, right? So he's got a signed contract here, customer's name down at the bottom, and it's got some money on there, right? It's a $10,000 job. And in order to get this job into production, it's got to be approved, but he's got to do a few things first, right? So he's got to create, in our world, he's got to create a material list, right? And some companies, they don't have their sales reps do this, but in this example, I'm going to show you how we do it, which our guys do create this. Right, and we got it nice and templated for them, and it makes it nice and easy for them. But they create the material list and the work orders, and then they submit those for approval, right? So they turn this in, and they got to get approval. So the sales manager is reviewing this, making sure that their contract has everything it should have on it, make sure the material list has everything it should have on it, and the work orders look good, all that kind of stuff. And at that point, sales manager is going to review that, and he's going to approve it. Now, when this job is approved, our CRM, which is AccuLinks, tells QuickBooks Online, hey, we got a new customer here, right? So QB gets a customer, all right? Now, the cool thing about this is because they've created their material list and their work orders, which is all based off of real-time pricing. So we have AccuLinks set up with our supplier ABC, so we have all our real-time pricing for material when they build that material list, and we've set all our subcontractor price up in our system, so we know all the costs associated for that job before we even build it. So what we get is what we call a profit forecast. Right, so just by them creating the material list and the work order for the job, we get a profit forecast, which tells us at the end how profitable this job is going to be. So for example, if we got a $10,000 job and we say that our material on that job, right, our material is going to be $3,000 and our labor on that job is going to be $2,200. That's telling me that my job costs are going to cost me $5,200, or 52% of that job, which leaves me with $4,800 in gross profit, which is a 48% margin. So before I even build this job, I know what the margin is going to be. So if this came out and said, 30% or 32% or 35% or anything below the lowest number that I want to build the job for, then I send this back to the sales rep and say, hey, I think you undersold this, or hey, what did we do here? Did we order too much material? Or are we using a sub that we shouldn't be using? Or whatever the case may be, I can kick it back before I build it and lose money on the job. All right, so this is all profit forecast, and this profit forecast isn't real expenses yet. It's just a forecast, right? So this all lives inside the CRM. So there's a profit forecast tab in that specific job that tells me what this job should come out to, assuming that the material order that we built and the work order that we built is accurate. Now, I could add in additional costs for that if I wanted to. If I wanted to say, we're going to have project management expense on that, I can add all those different costs in there. But you don't have to do that. This is how we do it right here. We base it off our material and labor, and we're good to go. We know roughly what this job is going to come out to. Now, once we actually build the job, all right, so now let's get into the build phase. So our production team, all right, so production, they are going to order the material, right? And they're going to schedule the job, okay? Now, when they order the material, what we do is in QuickBooks Online, we create a purchase order, which is connected to that specific job, okay? So this PO, by using that purchase order for any of the job expenses, it automatically lets us know that it's associated with that job, which makes it easier down the road when I'm trying to make sure we capture all expenses for a job. We have that PO. All right, so now we build the job, and the day the material gets dropped, our supplier invoices us, so we get a material invoice that is entered into QuickBooks Online. All right, and then our sub sends us an invoice. Our subcontractor invoices for the labor. All right, and that gets entered into QuickBooks Online. All right, so now we have all that. With both of those getting input into QuickBooks Online, there's a few things that we have to make sure that happens. So number one, we have to make sure that they enter the specific project or customer that that's for. So earlier when I talked about when a job gets approved, it gets sent over to QuickBooks. Well, when this expense comes in, it has to be marked in QuickBooks to that job. So it's got to have the customer entered. And we do multiple trades. So the second thing that has to be entered on that job is the class for the trade. So in this example, it would be roofing. So I'll put that as a class. And we have multiple locations. So the third thing that they enter is the location. All right. Now, if you only do one trade, or you set up all of your things to go to just one revenue account, you don't have multiple classes for the different trades, then you wouldn't do this step or this step, right? You would just make sure that the customer was entered. So once that happens, guys, we got all the expenses entered into QuickBooks Online. As they get entered and associated to that project, QuickBooks Online pushes that back to the CRM. And again, like I said, we have our setup in AccuLink, so it pushes it into AccuLink. So, and when it does that, it creates what's called a profit analysis, all right? And what this profit analysis is the real job costs or the real profitability of this job. So in the beginning, we had our profit forecast, and that said, your material is this, your labor is this, your profit is this. And in that example I used was 48% was our gross profit margin on that job. Now, when the real expenses come through, it creates the profit analysis. All right. And it says, okay, your real material over here, we said it was 30%, and we said labor was 22%. Over here, it might say, well, your material actually came out to 33%. and your labor was 22%. All right, so that was what, 3,300 and 2,200 on a $10,000 job. So your total expenses on this were 5,500, which came out to 4,500 in profit, or a 45%. So when I look at this, and anything that's a variance, and I can set that variance, I have our accountant, anywhere there's a 2% variance, she's coming to me to let me know, so I can look at it and say, okay, why the heck did this job not come in profitable? And I'm going to go to my production manager and say, hey, we said this job was going to come in at a 30% on material, and we came in at a 33. What happened? All right. And now when I ask what happened, a couple of things may come back to me. We might say, hey, we had to do additional work on this, and I didn't get a change order, so therefore that's the additional expense. We need to go back and get a change order from the customer. Or I might say, no, that it actually took this much material to do the job, but the sales rep didn't sell it that way. They under-ordered and undersold this job. So now I need to look at this from a different perspective. Does the sales rep need to get a commission deduction or whatever the case may be? But I can dig into it by comparing my profit forecast and my profit analysis. And guys, the way you really want to think about this is, your CRM is kind of your kind of what you're making your day-to-day decisions off of, right? It's where your profit forecast is going to lie. It's where your sales information lies. And in our case, we use it from the production side and from the job costing side, but any of the real actual expenses, all of that gets entered in the QuickBooks. And as long as I link it back to a customer, it pushes back into the CRM. So that's it for this video, guys. If you have any questions about this, be sure to make a comment below. I'll be happy to answer those. And make sure you visit us over at leveledupcontractor.com for more training just like this. And we'll see you guys in the next video.